remember like literally the week before my book signing, literally running out of money. That is the challenge. Like you're always going to have those moments where it's like, are you going to believe in you or are you going to turn back? And I was literally a hair trigger back from sending the button with my MailChimp to say like, hey, I'm going to have to postpone this book signing.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to this episode of Dreams and Drive. And I'm so excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Dr. Bobby Price. Dr. Bobby is a physiologist and a doctor of pharmacy. He also holds a certification as a plant-based nutritionist from Cornell University, and he got his doctorate of pharmacy from Mercer University. And this episode is going to center around how Dr. Bobby went from being a drug dealer, aka a pharmacist, to a herb healer. Instead of filling synthetic prescriptions, he now uses plant-based foods, medicinal herbs, and simple holistic techniques to help others restore their health. This episode is really a story of personal transformation, and Dr. Bobby is going to talk about how this question of what does he want to be great at changed throughout his life. So we talk about what that was when he was a child, up into him going into college and starting medical school, and then how now, after a personal journey with plant-based foods and seeing how that changed his life, how that now has led him to the work he does in helping others. We're doing a giveaway in this episode of Dr. Bobby's new book, Vegucation Over Medication, where he exposes the myths, lies, and truths about modern foods and medicine. So if you want to enter to win a copy of his book, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win, dreamsanddrive.com/win. We talk a lot in this episode about how he built his brand, how he was able to continue the work even during times when people might not have believed in him. And we really talk about this idea of the importance of being empowered physically, spiritually, and mentally. As always, if you love this episode, please share on social. I love it when you guys are screenshotting and posting to Instagram stories, Twitter, Facebook, even send it as a text message to a friend. You can find us across the board at Dreams and Drive on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. And one last thing, I'm going to be announcing a special event soon, so make sure that you are signed up for our Dreams and Drive newsletter. The keys, you can sign up by going to dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's hear from Dr. Bobby. So let's go back in time, right? You know, I feel like you can't start a story without thinking about the source, right? So let's go back to, you know, you weren't a doctor at this age yet, but the 9-year-old Dr. Bobby, or the 9-year-old Bobby, I would say. What was inspiring you back then? What was really like, you know, what was lighting you up about life?
9-year-old, good grief. So 9 years old, I was really a weird kid. I grew up in the projects, and despite that upbringing, like I love nature. And so I would disappear for hours into a neighboring like forest and just be collecting rocks and observing nature, things of that nature. And then when I would come back, everybody was trying to figure out where I was. So that was sort of my inspiration growing up, was initially nature. And then somehow, well, not somehow, the pressures of growing up in an urban neighborhood kind of force you into this like physical aspect of yourself. And let me give you an example about that, what I mean. You know, like there's always a fight. It doesn't matter if you're in a great neighborhood or a bad neighborhood. So I got picked on a little bit because I was the pseudo weird kid. And so, so like my dad was trying to figure out a way for me to kind of bridge the gap without telling me to go to school with a baseball bat. And so he put me in karate. To be honest with you, I stayed in karate for the better half of 8 years. I almost got a black belt and moved on with that later in life. But the karate was absolutely useless.
Really?
I tried it a couple times, and it did not work for me. It did not work out at all, especially not like the Bruce Lee movies I saw growing up as a kid. But what it did give me is this principle of discipline, and if you repeat a thing on a consistent basis, you get better at it. And that ended up kind of transferring into basketball. I grew very quickly from about 11 to 12 to 13. I was 6'1".
Wait, at 13, you were 6'1"?
Yeah. So,
Oh,
and
wow.
like all that discipline went into like playing basketball, practicing. So I was literally at the court until my mom would have to come get me sometimes at midnight, just practicing.
What city were you growing up in? Just wondering.
Yeah, so I grew up primarily here in Georgia, and then I had family in Delaware, so a mix of the two. But
Okay.
yeah, but just practicing. I mean, like literally going there with the mindset, like I got to shoot 1,000 shots. I got to dribble consistently without stopping for an hour, like doing those things like on and on and on. So that was like the source of my inspiration. Kind of growing up as a kid was just, I can repeat action over and over and get better and be able to do anything. That's what actually kind of transferred in life as well. Like I just took that knowledge and just kept applying it to everything I was doing in life.
What was the dream for you then? Like, did you want to be a basketball player? Did you even, like, in the back of your head, ever want to go back to the nature part of you?
Both of them ended up playing a part. So I definitely wanted to be a basketball player. Ended up going to college and playing point guard and really enjoyed that experience, and was hoping to play professionally. I never did, because I ended up like trading the dream out for something that became more of a dream, which was, healthcare. So I just fell in love I always loved chemistry. And when I say always, in 10th grade, I had this, boisterous and loud teacher who would wear like tailored suits and, hair pieces to school. He was rich, but he taught chemistry. And I couldn't stop looking at the dude because he looked so like funny compared to yeah. So, but it made me listen to him, and in that process, I fell in love with chemistry because it would explain like some of the things that were happening to me growing up. Like I grew up in the late 80s and 90s, and that was like the drug era and crack era, and unfortunately, I had that it ravaged my family. And so like I would see people who had these drug addictions in my family and try to figure out like what is it about this that's causing them to do this. And a lot of what he was teaching me in chemistry was helping me understand that from a chemical level. And so that was the attraction. So later in life, like that's why I ended up becoming a chemist and a pharmacist and so forth.
So you entered college knowing that you wanted to do that. You wanted to go into chemistry and become a pharmacist?
Actually, I entered college and I just wanted to play basketball, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Wait. So you had the chemistry, but then you went to college. You were like, nah, I'm just going to focus on ball.
So like when I was in high school, I was discovered to be like the smart guy on the team. Like, and I didn't know it. I just knew I love being competitive with myself. Mm. I always made good grades for that reason. Like I didn't want to not ever get my best. But I never showed that. So nobody really ever knew until like, we were in practice one day and the smartest kid on the team, who was, I think, the valedictorian at the time, we were in the same class. I was taking a human anatomy class, and go back a little bit further, they were asking him about bones and muscles in the body, and he didn't know some of them, and I did. I knew every bone and muscle in the body in 10th grade. And so anytime he didn't know it, so they stopped going to him. They started asking me. Mm. And then he started telling the advanced anatomy and physiology professor, and the teacher came to class one day and started asking me questions, and he was like, "You need to be in my class." And so those are kind of the things that kind of nudged me in the direction. It was like, oh, I am pretty good at this. I just thought it was something I was interested in. And I had the posters on the wall. Unlike everybody else that had Michael Jordan posters, I had like a human anatomy and physiology poster on the wall.
At this point, did you ever feel like there was something special about you? And I'm saying that from a personal level because I talk to people sometimes and I feel like when you have certain gifts as a young person, you may not know how to express it, but you feel like there's something different or something unique about yourself.
I knew I was different because I like collecting rocks and insects and things of that. So I knew I was different. But in terms of like special different, I thought that I had the genetics for something great. And the reason why is because my uncle was a civil rights leader, and he was very instrumental in Black civil rights movement. And so even though like I can count, maybe 13 times that I actually had the opportunity to meet my uncle growing up, but I thought that if I was cut from that cloth, then I could be great too. Like, it's in my blood. I always proposed the question to myself, like, what are you going to be great at? And so for a long time, I thought that was basketball. And that was only because that's all I saw. Like, the people who were idolized in my neighborhood were the basketball players or the drug dealers or, people like that. And so I figured, like, I didn't want to be a drug dealer because I saw what that did to my family. So I'd be a basketball player because I love doing it. It was like, I could do anything as long as I use this repeat process of, sharpening my sword every day. And I have the blood for it.
So when did you realize, and when did the dream switch, and when did you start focusing heavy on pharmacy? Because was there something that happened, or did the basketball dream just fall through?
So I was very athletic in high school. And so that was really the skill set that I was recruited for. But 2 weeks before starting my college basketball season, I tore my ankle up. It made me less athletic. And so you start to question yourself because, like, the way you were being great in basketball before, you can't be great that way. It's sort of like Jordan toward the end of his career, he had to switch up his game. And so I was struggling with having to switch up my game. It just made me start to think in a more rational way. And when I say rational, I don't mean right. I mean just what is logic. And so I started to think, like, what do you love? What else do you love? And the other thing that complicated things, I was seeing people who were on my team who graduated and didn't make it to the NBA, went off to play overseas, really didn't enjoy it. And so it made me start to question whether it's something that, do I love basketball or do I love the idea of becoming a professional basketball player? At that point, I started to ask, well, what else do you love? And I was like, remember, you love chemistry. You're really good at human anatomy and biology. I unfortunately was, faced with a lot of death growing up. I watched a friend kill another friend. I had several friends who died growing up. All my grandparents died by the time I was in the 10th grade. I was in love with my grandmother, and I can distinctly remembering at 8 saying, I hope she never dies before I do. I remember saying that. And so, like, I remember being at basketball camp, coming back home, and because they called me and they said she was about to die, she had colon cancer. And I got there, I spoke to her, and she did her best to hug me and tell me she loved me, and she literally died. And so I just remembered, like, how helpless I felt when I watched my friend die in front of me, and I watched her die. And I was thinking, like, well, maybe I can kind of be, some kind of doctor or something. But I really didn't, at that point, think pharmacy. My mind didn't allow for that. It wasn't possible to me because I didn't know any examples in my neighborhood of people like me who had did that. I remember going to a professor and asking, like, hey, do you think maybe what can I do with this degree? Because my initial degree was in kinesiology, which is the study of the body in relation to motion. I remember asking him, he was a Black professor, the only one in the department. I remember asking him, hey, do you think I can be maybe a physician's assistant? And he was like, hey, why don't you just be a doctor? And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, yeah.
And it was that first moment that someone had told you that, right?
Right.
And it's so important, those moments of realizing the how they say you don't know what you don't know? There's that
exactly
quote, like you don't know what you don't know, but when you know, you know.
Yeah. And oddly enough, the funny thing was as soon as he told me that, I went and figured out what I needed to do that. And then there was a question of like reference letters. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. Will you write me a letter when I get ready to graduate and apply? And he was like, yes. And I mean, the next 2 years, I made all A's and a couple of B's. And I remember going back to him to ask for the letter, and he just ducked me. Like, he just wouldn't give me the letter. And I mean, I spoke to him, but I was going by the office consistently, like 3 to 4 times a week, and just sitting outside of the office when he wasn't there. And funny enough, a teacher across the hall saw me and asked why was I coming there so often. And I was like, I'm here to get a letter, and I'm about to apply to medical school, and I don't have a teacher's letter. And she was like, I'll write you one. I was like, nah, no thanks. Like, I really need a great one. And I have a rapport with him. And she was like, you took 3 of my classes. Like, you made all A's. I'll write you an amazing letter. And she wrote me the letter. And, and that's how I ended up initially getting accepted into medical school. And then I changed, paths along the way.
So you ended up going to pharmacy school, which I know is different from medical school, right?
Right.
All right. So let's fast forward a little bit, right? You're in pharmacy school, or I guess I kind of want to know, why did you change?
So I moved to New Jersey. I was staying in Jersey City for a while. And so I was working in Hoboken at the hospital, and I had all these doctors who, they knew I was being prepared to go to medical school. I was actually going to go to UMNDJ, which is now Rutgers. They had a summer program, so I came early, and I was just working at the hospital, and all the doctors were really doing a great job of just mentoring me. I had this one physician who was a surgeon, and in New York, what they do is they'll have a surgeon just come in to sew somebody up who got their head busted in, and he'll leave. But every time he would come in, he would ask specifically for me to help him. And a lot of the other staff kind of got jealous of that, because I'll be taken away for whatever work I would do to help him. So
wait, were you a med student then? I just want to make sure that you were just working in the hospital.
No, I was just working in the hospital getting prepared to go. Because what I figured was like, well, I had planned to move to New York anyway. And so I figured I'd go up there, kind of get to lay of the land, learn some things, learn how things work, and then start school. But this doctor, man, like, he was really rich. I mean, he would invite me to his home in New York. He had like $1,000 fishes, and it was amazing. But I remember,
I feel like this could be a movie already. I'm here picturing everything you're saying. Like, what? Okay, keep going.
Yeah, it was dope. Like, and so like one day we're about to go out, and he's like, let's go grab some food. And I mean, this is a white doctor. It's not a black doctor. Like, but he just took a liking to me, and he goes, why do you want to do this? And I was like, I just want to help people. Like, when their head is busted, I want to put it back together. When they got colon cancer, I want to tell them what to do. Like, and he was like, I hate this. He was like, I got 3 wives that I have to pay thousands of dollars to. I'm lonely. Like, I hate what I do because of the bureaucracy of it. Like, he was like, you really need to question whether or not this is something you want to do. Like, you're a really good person. This can make you a foul person. So it just made me start to look at what it is I was getting into. So I just started to question that. I was on a plane going back to Atlanta to visit, and this lady who was a pharmacist was sitting next to me. And I was actually doing real estate business at the time. This is like right before the market crash. And so I was on the phone, like closing a deal, and headed back to Atlanta to do the paperwork. And she overheard it, and she asked a lot of questions. And, one day she asked, she was like, can I stay in contact with you? I like to invest. And so she gave me a call like later that weekend, and she was like, I like to do what you're doing. And I was like, cool. And I was like, well, what do you do? Because I can put you in touch with my mortgage officer and that kind of thing. And she was like, I'm a pharmacist. And I was like, oh. I mean, like, my perspective, I really didn't know what pharmacists did. Like, I just thought they like count, lick, pour, and stick when it came to pills.
I always wondered that, like, why do they have to go to pharmacy school for so long when they're just, mixing things behind the counter?
Right. And so, like, when she explained what the curriculum was. And when she explained what she knows and what her job was, it made me understand that it was a profession that was probably more difficult than going to medical school. And I say that because I knew what the curriculum was to go to medical school. And I had friends who were in my class or were going to be in my medical class. And as I was matriculating through pharmacy school and they were matriculating through medical school, I was teaching them most of what they needed to know versus, them teaching me, because ultimately 90 to 95% of every doctor's visits ends in what? A prescription.
Yep.
And so with that being said, like most people, when they go to the doctor, I mean, you really can go to a pharmacy or anywhere and figure out, hey, I got diabetes. Hey, my blood pressure is high. It doesn't take a scientist to figure out that. And the majority of things that are being in the diagnostic process can be discovered with labs. I mean, and there's technicians who can read labs. And so like, it made me understand like, like the real meat and potatoes of healthcare is what happens after I tell you, hey, you got diabetes. Like before that, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, you got it. So what? And so I was like, okay, well, let me look into this. And then I'm like, okay, I'm really good at chemistry. Most of the times, like, I'm not only good at organic chemistry, but I'm good at, inorganic chemistry. And so I'm like, well, maybe this fits better. And so, I ended up calling the school while I was down in Atlanta and told them my story. And they were like, oh, you're going to medical school? Yes. And, I already got this, got that. And they was like, well, if you'd like to come, like, we'd love to have you. And we just put it together and boom.
Wow.
Became a pharmacist.
What I find so interesting about your story so far is how it's the little moments that inspired revelations for you, right? Like you having that teacher that really made you love chemistry. You having that doctor who took a liking to you and said, hey, do you really want this? And then you just having the person who wanted to do business with you and learning that she was a pharmacist. It's like there's so many little moments that could change our lives. Like we're constantly changing our lives with the actions that we take. But let's fast forward the story a little bit, Dr. Bobby. So you go to pharmacy school, you come out, you're working in the pharmacy, what happens where you realize, wait, what am I doing?
For me, so first of all, when I first came out, I was excited. I'm like, I'm gonna change healthcare. I'm gonna get a Nobel Prize, and I'm gonna change my community, like, because we struggle in our community health wise, and we struggle in our personal health as well. And so, like, what happened was I didn't feel great, like me inside of me, like. I was lethargic. I had gained a significant amount of weight because I was making all that good money now, and I could take myself out for steak every day if I wanted to. I was overworking, so I didn't have time to work out like I usually did. And so I gained 40 pounds.
Wow.
And I felt like it. I was 28 and I felt 40, 50, 60. I ate when I went up the stairs. I had headaches. I had high blood pressure since I was 16. That was despite the fact in high school, I only had about 5 or 6% body fat.
So how are you having high blood pressure from your diet?
Well, I chalked it up to heredity. That's what I kind of figured out it was. And that's what my doctors told me too, because they were like, well, there's no real reason why this kid should have high blood pressure. He's fit, looks great, has no heart defects. So I would watch my salt. I never really ate pork. I stopped eating pork when I was probably 10. And so like, those are the myths. You think like, okay, I'm gonna watch my salt and then I'm not gonna eat pork. But it didn't change anything. I was 28, still high blood pressure. Every time I went in the doctor, they would tell me it's high. We need to give you a prescription. They would give me a prescription. I would never go fill it.
Although you were a pharmacist?
Yeah, man, let me tell you something. Healthcare professionals are the worst patients. We are the worst patients because it's like, first of all, we think we know everything. And second of all, we know the side effects of medications. We see them. You guys experience them. And unfortunately, to protect ourselves, quite often what we do is we say, oh, I'm just going to take the dose down. So we make augmentations to your regimen or just change the medications. But really what that is that's side effects. And so we see that. And we don't want to put ourselves through that. I mean, they did a survey in Australia of medical doctors who are oncologists, and they asked, would you take chemo if you had cancer? And 97% said no. I was no different. I just didn't do it. But I was, this is why I always tell people, it doesn't matter what door of health you walk through, just walk through it. Because like for me, I was going to Carnival in Trinidad, and we had these skimpy outfits that in our band that we were going to be in that didn't require a shirt. I didn't want to be the person there with a shirt on. And so I'm like, man, I got to get this stomach flat, get at least 2 of my abs back. Cause in college, that's what I was known for. Like I was very fit. I figured I was watching like a Tony Robbins episode or something, and he mentioned something about during that weekend, the people who are at the retreat do green smoothies, don't eat meat, don't eat dairy, all those sorts of things. They lose this weight, they gain all this energy. And I was like, that sounds like what I need for Carnival. And so I just figured instead of a weekend, I'd do it for 21 days because they say it takes 21 days to change a habit. And so that's what I did. And then 21 days, I lost about 20 pounds. Yeah, and then I just, at that point, it just made me start to look into natural health more and more. And so I added on some herbs and a few other things, took away a few hybrid foods that I loved.
Like what?
Like carrots and potatoes and, beets and all those type of foods and vegetables that are imbalanced in their sugar and food chemistry. And did a detox, a herbal detox. And all of a sudden, like I lost 40 pounds. Like, so I literally went from 238 to 195. And
what was the time span?
That was about 35 days, 35 to 40 days. And I was, it changed up. I hated like long distance running. Before this, I couldn't remember a time like other than high school or like college basketball practice where I would intentionally run a mile. And during this time, like I was running 4 and 5 miles a day, like easy.
Was this like, did you feel inspired to run, or did you just want to test to see what your body could do?
Man, I started off like sort of like Forrest Gump in the movie. Like I'm just going to take a walk, and then I'm going to I'm a jog. And then like, I went a mile. It's 2 miles. Let's see how far I can go. Like it really just was an evolution. And in that process, I was running 5 and 6 miles a day. Easy. And then going to the gym later that day to play basketball. And I hadn't had that energy since high school.
What age were you at this point?
I was probably 30 at this point.
And at this point, were you still at the pharmacy?
Well, at that point, I had quit my job. It just inspired me to quit my job because I literally went from feeling like a healer in the pharmacy because my pharmacy literally was lit up. Like people were leaving the pharmacies to come there. And then all of a sudden, like I went from feeling like a healer, and then I was like, man, you a drug dealer.
Wow. And coming from the community you come from, seeing all that death.
Yeah. And then my blood pressure being normalized for the first time since I was 16. I started telling other patients about what I did, and they would do it. And they would come back and like, oh yeah, my blood pressure is good now. And my blood sugar. And so at that point, it was like, yeah, I can't, like, I'm confused and this is a contradiction and I need to figure this out. So I left my job and started doing something different, which kind of entailed pharmacy and plant-based nutrition. And did so well with that, I ended up getting a award for the most innovative pharmacist in Georgia at the time. I remember at the meeting, like this guy coming up to me and going like, hey, I'm one of the people who actually nominated you. And it was good that he came and told me that because like I was pretty much the only Black person there. I was the youngest person who had ever gotten an award, and nobody Black had ever gotten the award. So I was trying to figure out what did I do to deserve this, because like really what I'm doing is contradictory to pharmacy. But he told me, hey, I own a couple of pharmacies. And at the time I was working with a physician clinic or practice that had 21 clinics in it. And he was allowing me basically to write prescriptions for employees and some patients and plant-based prescriptions and things of that nature. And I was really doing a lot of good work. And so he was like, I think if we can get these, I have an eye drop that I compound. And I think if I could get those in those 21 clinics with you, I think we can make a lot of money together. I'm like, oh, okay. How much? And he's like, in a year, you
were
probably
these
can
natural eye drops or?
They weren't.
Okay. I just want to make
sure.
Really
great question. Great question.
Because you were already on this health journey. Because it just seems like it could be a good business proposition, but was it with your mission or your growing mission?
Exactly, and that's pretty much. He was like, "Hey, you'll be a millionaire in a year."
You have all these people in your life, who were just like leading you on. It's like a series of questions. Do you take it or do you not take it?
Oh man, I feel like life is just like that for everybody. Mm-hmm. It really is. Yeah, I ended up going home thinking about it and just decided, man, this is going to take you down right back where you just came from. You just have more money, but it's the same direction you just came from. And so I declined it. But the dope thing is, again, this is how life works. Life is always like, life isn't testing you. It's like whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. It's like, okay, immediately after that, I got a call maybe 2 weeks later, or an email from a friend who was like, hey, would you like to come to Japan and work? And I'm like, okay, what would I be doing in Japan? And it's funny enough, like I had just discussed with the physician who owned the practice, he was a millionaire over and over. But, he was mentoring me and he asked, like, what do you really want to do? Because I know you're not going to be here long. And I said, I just want to be able to work abroad one day and start a company abroad. And then I get this call and they're like, hey, you can come out here, do your thing with your company. And I see you like the plant-based thing. I don't know if you know, but like Okinawans are known for living to 100, no disease, and they eat primarily a plant-based diet. And so I was like, you think I could be able to like work with them and study them? He was like, oh, of course. Like they would love it. I pondered upon the idea for like a couple months. I even like denied it a couple of times because my alma mater was trying to get me to do some things as well here in the States. But I ended up taking the deal and moved to Japan. And that's really where everything, like just the trajectory just went upward from there.
Wow. So I'm going to pause you for a second. At this point to date, before you go to Japan, how old are you?
33, 32.
What was your family like at this point? Like, did you have did you have anyone in your life? Like, were you leaving everything to go start anew in Japan? Or was there anybody who was like, listen, are you taking me with you,
Oh man. So like, this is going to be a point of just blatant honesty. So at the time, I had a girlfriend and we were going through like some trauma and I was doing the wrong thing, trying to like heal myself by hanging out with somebody else. So, and I was honest with her about that. I told her like what was happening. And so we were going through that. It was like two people on one shoulder. My girlfriend was telling me like, no, you shouldn't leave and you're just going to leave me. And my other friend was telling me, you should go. This is your dream. Like, if this was like a story, this is the point in the book Alchemist where he decides to either stay at the camp or go to Egypt. Mm-hmm. And this is that point for you. And I really felt the same way. Like, I felt like, first of all, how did this even come to me?
It seems so magical, right? Like, who gets invitations to go live in another country?
Exactly.
It almost is part of a higher purpose,
And so, like, I went back and forth with it and I'm like, look, like, you either going to be the author of your story or not. Like, it's okay either way. And in a split moment, I just emailed them, like, I'm coming. And they started the paperwork immediately. Like, can you be here in a month? And I just said, yeah. And so I started literally selling everything and saying goodbyes. My family knows, like, I've always been an explorer. Like I mentioned before, I would just disappear into the forest. Like when I got a car, like I would go across state lines just to see places. I remember traveling to New York at 17 by myself as a freshman in college and renting a hotel room and getting a Greyhound. Like I just always been that person. And so my family knows that about me. And so when I told them I was going to Japan, they were like, okay, here we go. And so like nobody really contended about it. They just thought like, this is him. I ran, man. Like I jumped on the plane and packed a few suitcases, 4 suitcases, and, started writing another chapter in the book.
Hey guys, quick break from the episode. I just want to remind you that we are giving away a copy of Dr. Bobby's book, Vegetation Over Medication. We've reached the point of the story where things are about to change, and this book is going to take you through all the things that Dr. Bobby learned from this point forward. So if you want to enter to win, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win, dreamsanddrive.com/win. So you arrive in Okinawa. Let's start talking about what you were learning. What, besides the work that you were doing professionally, just the work you interviewing these 100-year-olds, people who weren't living with diseases, what were you learning about the body and about food and how you could use it to heal yourself?
Well, I think the first thing that was like super magical to me was like they changed my whole perspective on aging. I think in this society, we have this idea on aging because like our lifespans are put in pretty much 3 sectors. One, birth to 18, and then from 18 from about 21 to 65, you're working. And then from 65 to 75, you're waiting to die because the life expectancy is around 75. And so I looked at it, I'm like, so you really get 18 years of like unconscious freedom. And I say unconscious because you don't even know you're free. You're just being a kid. Mm-hmm. And then you get another 40 years of slavery, working for somebody. And then you get 10 years to regret all that.
I never heard of it, put that way, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
And so I'm thinking like, that's the typical trajectory of our lifespan. And so I'm looking at these people who are 97, 100, 105, who are riding bikes uphill and farming and having
at 97?
Yeah, man. And having fluid conversation. And I'm like, this is not what I see. My grandmother lived to 105, and I can remember 5 words she said. Like, she didn't speak a lot, and she didn't do a lot. She did live to 105, and I don't remember her having any disease, so she died in her sleep. I don't remember her being anything like these people, and they're talking to me, like, full conversations. And, of course, initially I had a translator because I didn't know Japanese. They just changed everything. They're telling me about, I drink this tea every morning because of this, so it lowers inflammation. I eat this purple potato every day because it's really high in antioxidants and that keeps cancer away. Or like I eat this bitter melon because it balances my blood sugar. They had this principle called harahachibu, which is eat to 80%. So it means that never eat till you're full because, that's one of their philosophies. And that's scientifically proven because like once you get to 80%, our brains have a 20% lag time. You're actually full at 80%. And so as I'm learning all these things and finding out they only eat 1% dairy and meat in their diet. That's it, just 1%.
So what's that, like a chicken nugget? Not even chicken, that's a bad example, like a piece of fish every year? Like what?
Yeah, like they'll put cubes of meat into their food for seasoning, like that sort of thing. And then they would tell me about their grandchildren or children who had moved parts of the islands that was urbanized and they were eating primarily a standard American diet. eating fast foods and how they were seeing diabetes for the first time and high blood pressure for the first time and seeing someone who was fat for the first time in their life. And these are people who are almost 100. It was just a great visual and experience to see firsthand. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background is. If you eat like this, then you get this. And so it was really magical, man. And it just made me try what they were doing. And
so how was your own personal health journey evolving as well?
What happened in the space of Japan is I learned like they're such peaceful people. And that was the part of my health journey I had yet to conquer at that point. And also herbs. Like I was using herbs, but like they incorporated herbs in every facet of their lives when it came to nutrition. And those are the two things I learned. And so it's just learning how important patience is and learning how important like being stress-free is and learning how important community is and family. And I don't just mean bloodline, but like how important those things are to our physical health, mental and spiritual health. And so those are the things that I started to incorporate in my personal experience before I left there after about 3-4 years.
So why did you leave?
I felt like I had learned everything I needed to learn. Like, I think once I started, like for the last year that I was there, I just felt like I was going there and we were just hanging out. Like I wasn't learning anything anymore. I was building rapport and, like my karate teacher had started to ask me questions like, hey, do you want to stay here? Like, we should get you a house. Like they're just like things like that was happening where it's like, do you want to be here for the rest of your life? And is there more to learn? Like, what is it that you want? And I felt like there was more to learn. So I decided I was going to leave and I did. And before I left, I did, my thing where I go on 21 days of gratitude and, meditation and things like that. And I just decided I was just going to travel the world for at least 1.5 years and just learn different things. And that's what I ended up doing. So,
question, what were you doing with all the knowledge that you were learning over those 3 to 4 years? And as you were traveling the world, did you ever in your mind have this idea that you would return to the U.S. and build this brand and help people here?
Before I left, I had started writing a book based on the things that I had learned at that point. But once I got to Okinawa and learned what I learned, I realized all that information was obsolete. Like it needed to be changed. So I rewrote the book. My idea was I'm just going to learn and unlearn because I had learned so many things that were wrong in traditional healthcare that I had to unlearn those things and then convince myself that, okay, this is really the way. Because like when you're unlearning something, it is a chore. A lot of us grew up with the idea that money doesn't grow on trees. And so as a result, we think with scarcity. And we can't think in terms of abundance. And it's hard for us to detach from those sorts of things. And so for me, that's what I was doing throughout that process. Like I've always been very open to change and transformation. And there is a difference between the two. And so as a result, that's why the book kept changing. And so like as the book was changing, I was just thinking to myself, well, like, let's learn some more so that we make sure that this book is good and right. And so that's what my idea was simply to get the book up to speed with what is good and right around the world, not just one perspective from America or Japan for that matter. And so that's what I was thinking, like finish the book to totality and then come back to the States and hope it does well.
So what were some food lessons you were learning around the world, that have to do with plant-based diets?
The world and how it grows specific to the land and the people. And so, say for instance, if you're in Asia, you're going to find a lot of exotic fruit there. And it's not because they created them. It's because in hot and moist climates like that, that's what tends to grow in abundance there. But also, those things that grow in abundance are also specific to what disease states might possibly pop up in that population.
Wow.
You get what I mean? Same thing in Africa. Like when I was in Africa, there's this tribe called of Maasai warriors that are indigenous to Kenya and Tanzania. They're known for never getting heart disease despite eating meat and milk as their primary substances in their diets, right? But what is often unmentioned is the fact that they die from parasites by the age of 40 or 45. They die very early. So they actually don't mature enough to actually be able to die from the heart disease. You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of the medicinal plants in Eastern Africa are really good for getting rid of parasites. You see what I'm saying? So like, that's what I was learning on my journey, is that the world in our body is really amazing.
So what grows in America? Because when I think of America, I feel like it's a melting pot of all these things. Is there anything that's grown in the U.S. or North America that has, I guess, evolved to our needs? What
I learned from that was when I went to Sedona and met some of the Navajo Indians out there, is that a lot of the earlier treatments, and when I say earlier, I mean the 30s and 40s, when they were discovering a lot of these medicinal treatments for cancer, they were getting them from the Indians, and they were using herbs like rhubarb, things of that nature, to treat cancer. They were noticing that a lot of the animals, Harold Hoxsey is a guy who was really famous in earlier times for discovering a cure for cancer. And he discovered it by watching a horse that had been diagnosed with cancer. Anytime a horse gets sick, what do? They put it inside of a stable. So now it can't get to nature, right? Mm-hmm. And the horse usually dies. Well, this horse broke out of the stable and was eating a particular root and grass that it typically doesn't eat. And the doctor noticed that the horse got better. And then it eventually noticed that the cancer wasn't there anymore. So the guy figured, oh, this is a treatment for cancer. And it ended up being a treatment for cancer. And so every place is like that. There are over 80,000 edible plants, and we typically eat about 20 of them.
Wow.
In our average, daily or, eating diary. But no matter where you go, there's medicinal plants, man, to heal.
I have a practical question for you.
Okay.
How were you sustaining your lifestyle? Did you have odd jobs? Were you like living off your savings? Because a lot of us, we have these passions and we want to go out to pursue it. Like, we might have these dreams of traveling the world like you, but we can't fund it. What were you doing so that you could do the work?
So I knew a year before I was leaving that I was going to travel for a year. And so I saved a significant amount of money the 2 years leading up to that. And I was getting paid good money. So
in Japan.
Very good money in Japan. And so as a result, I probably saved $80,000.
Okay.
And I just flooded that over the next 2 years until I got back here. And but to be honest with you, I probably spent $50K in that time, that almost 2 years of traveling nonstop, because the majority of places in Eastern Asia are very cheap. A lot of places I was going, it wasn't that expensive at all. And so it allowed me to maintain that life. And I never really spent money like crazy. So I was basically living off my savings. And when I got back to the States, it took the majority of my remaining savings to write the book and finish the book.
So what were some challenges, though, that you were facing along this journey? Because, it's fun to be able to learn about people, to invest in your health. But was there anything that was just really difficult for you to endure during this time?
Self-confidence, because you always have there's two voices. One is true and the other one is all for safety. And that's the ego. Like the ego is always going to tell you to do something that's safe because it's based in fear. And so I come back to the States and I'm running out of money. And the first thing the ego says is like, check your email. I think we got somebody who wants us to work for them. And I got an email to be a pharmacy director for a hospital. And they, hey, you only have to work 3 months and we'll pay you this amount. And it was a really nice amount. You know, the other voice says, if you do that, you won't write this book. That was really my biggest challenge. I even remember, and this is just being really blatant, I remember like literally the week before my book signing, literally running out of money. Like to the point where I didn't even know if I was going to have money to buy books for the people who had paid to come to the book signing.
Wow. And
so like I was at a point where I was thinking I was going to have to like refund everybody. But like, that is the challenge. Like, you're always going to have those moments where it's like, are you going to believe in you or are you going to turn back? And I was literally a hair trigger back from sending the button with my MailChimp to say like, hey, I'm going to have to postpone this book signing. And who knows how it would have went, you know, the second time around.
So how did you get the money then?
I had been doing this detox for years. Like, and I just looked at it like, hey, the body is like a car. It needs an oil change. And when you get that oil change, your body just runs better. And so I was thinking like, why don't other people do this? This is why you don't have energy. This is why. And the second chapter of my book is about how toxicity is really what sets the stage for disease. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just see if I can sell some, detoxes. And I had a decent following at the time, maybe 6,000 people. And so I just started putting it out there. Hey, I have a detox. This is why you need to do it. Let me explain why I do it and what it's for and how you use it and what you can expect in terms of the benefits. And fortunately, like I got a couple of people to sign up for it. And those people really loved the results, how they felt, things that were being healed, those sorts of things. And then that kind of spread a little bit online. And then that just made people want to ask more about the book that was coming out. So more people signed up for the book signing. And that's what kind of allowed me to be able to pay for the books. And 3 days before the book signing, it sold out. And when I say sold out, I expected 50 people. I ended up having 120 there.
Wow. And what year was this? Was this 20?
This is last year, last April.
So, I didn't get to ask you this, but I'm just curious. So along this journey where you were on social media building the brand, like how are you gaining the following getting the community? Because I feel like there's a growing amount of people who are interested in this stuff. And just quick side note, I don't think I told you this. So I grew up like a Whole Foods baby, meaning like my mom was very big into like holistic health and always making sure, like she used to take us to this doctor that used to look into our eyes and tell us what was wrong with us. Anyway, so like I grew up knowing or having a little bit more health education, right? But like I had friends who their parents fed them like soda and cereal for dinner. So there are some people who know about this work and there are some people who don't. So how were you building the awareness so that when you launched the book, you could have it sold out to 120 people?
Yeah. And so like what I will say, this was totally inadvertent. I didn't try to do this, but what happened was, I think what was happening while I was in Japan, when I left America to move abroad, in the Black community and just really in general, people just started traveling more, especially Americans. This had always been a thing for people abroad, but Americans started traveling more, especially in the Black community. And so as I was traveling, because while I was in Japan, while I lived in Japan, I maybe hit 20 countries. And then once I left, I probably hit another 35. So like people are just watching my journey as I'm like posting, hey, I'm in Africa. This tribe is the Himba people. This is what I learned from them today. You should do this too. Oh, I'm in Tanzania today. Oh, I'm in India. I'm learning, meditation and yoga. Oh, I'm in Thailand. This is what I'm doing in Thailand. People are just watching that journey because it's uncommon to see like a Black person just all over the place like that. What I did was, when I was coming out with the book, I was like, I have to create a separate profile to start a brand, because this was just me posting pictures. And so what I did was I just simply invited everybody. And at that point, I had around 3,500 followers on my personal page. I invited everybody to come over to that page. Like, this is my page of everything I've learned while I was traveling. Because you guys didn't know, I was actually traveling for the purposes of learning how to heal you. Everybody just came over to that page. And then once I started posting like the book and telling them like, hey, I'm talking about my travels in the book to a certain extent, it just started garnering attention. Like, hey, there's this Black doctor who like moved to Japan, and he learned how to heal people because he studied these people who lived to 100. So like, it really was a grassroots campaign in terms of like getting the movement. And that's kind of how I grew my social media, because I really didn't know what I did in the first place to do that.
So it was really organic. You weren't like, out here where some people are like paying for followers and doing all this like back end stuff.
I didn't even know I could pay for followers. I probably would have.
You know what? I wrote this question down. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm kind of laughing at myself. But were you ever scared that, and I'm saying this because I also grew up in a house with like conspiracy theorists, not even theorists, but you know what I mean? Like, my mom was always questioning everything, right? And there's Dr. Sebi. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Dr. Sebi.
Sebi. Were you ever scared that somebody would try to off you, or, that somebody would try to take you down for the work that you were doing to heal? Because think about it, pharmacies are making big money, right?
Yeah.
Were you ever, how did you manage like the possible threats?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And the reason why it is because the year before I came back, I came home because my father had a stroke. And that's the complexity of being in my position, is that quite often when the people who are closest to you don't listen to you. Mm-hmm. And so my father, for a long time, was listening to me, and then he kind of got off track. So he ended up having a stroke. And so I was on my way back, and, he was fine. He was recovering. And I decided while I was here, I was going to go and visit Dr. Sebi in Honduras. And so I had bought the tickets, talked to Dr. Sebi about telling him I was coming. And when I got back here, I went to Sedona in Arizona just to meditate and that sort of thing. And while I was there, I just felt like I shouldn't go. And so this is in 2000.
To Honduras.
Yeah, to Honduras to kind of learn with Dr. Sebi. And so I just decided I'm not going to go. And I didn't. And that was in April. In June, they pronounced him like missing, like the government had took him. And by August, he had passed away. That hit home with me because I had been discussing things that I really wanted to do with him. Mm-hmm. And how I wanted to carry on his tradition. And we were talking about things that we could do together. And so, yeah, it hit home with me like really hard, because like I was like finally like somebody to really mentor me. And I was just going to go live in Honduras, which I ended up going anyway. But yeah, it was scary. And then I saw colleagues at the CDC, people just turning up dead, and natural doctors.
For real? Wow.
Yeah, a guy who kind of was a whistleblower. He died, and a couple of natural doctors in Florida. So yeah, like I realized the threat, especially being like a pharmacist, like.
And
like
you had worked at the FDA too, so
Yeah. So like, I'm like, well, yeah, this might be a problem, and I'm not like a hero. Like, I don't want any smoke with them at all. But like at the same time, it was like, well, what are you gonna do though? Like, and there was nothing else to do, so it's like I have to keep moving. And so like I realized that that's a possible threat, but at the same token, like I read this book. It's called Many Lives, Many Masters, and it just talks about the reincarnation of life, how we really never die. And so ultimately, my philosophy on death and dying is that, you know, somebody can kill me right now and I'll pop up as a baby in Peru. And so it's really my soul that's infinite. And so I really I don't want to say I don't worry about it, but I'm not necessarily concerned about it, because then it affects how I live. Mm-hmm. And I don't want anything to affect how I live. You can affect how I die, but not how I live.
One of the things that this is actually something that Tiara encouraged me to ask you is, as a chemist, right, having this scientific background, and you're going on this journey in life, what were the formulas for success that you were seeing? Like, you know, like, were there certain things, like whether it be a food formula? Let's do it in 3 parts. So a food formula for success that you were realizing was really helping to lead people to true health.
If you want to be healthy, you have to do 2 things. You have to eliminate toxicity. And the reason why is because we live in a toxic world. The water is toxic. As a matter of fact, most people have eczema, psoriasis, and skin disorders because of the water that comes out of the faucet. And then a lot of people are drinking that, whether they're using that to wash off their vegetables or they're using that for cooking. The air is toxic. Food is toxic with chemicals. Just overall, like, we use cell phones now. That's toxicity. And so we have to consistently detoxify our bodies in order to consistently have health in our lives, because what happens is our elimination channels get blocked up. We don't have bowel movements. We don't pee nearly enough. We don't sweat nearly enough. So we have to eliminate, and we breathe shallow. So we have to eliminate because all the channels are blocked up now. And so that's why detoxification is so important. So that's the first step. The next step is alkalizing. And you alkalize with alkaline foods and naturally alkaline water, because water can be alkaline or alkalized. Alkalized mean I use chemistry to make it alkaline. And then stress reduction, which is peace in the body, because stress actually triggers chemical reactions in the body that make you sick. And most people get cut off in traffic, and they're living with that stress that was in that moment throughout the day and next week and the week after. It never shuts off. So they're constantly creating that chemistry or toxic chemistry in their body. And so I think that's really like the key to health is those 3 things: is stress reduction and alkalizing with alkaline foods and water and herbs, and then detoxifying with herbs as well.
What are some things that, like, we dream drivers, like simple little hacks that if we just made these small changes, we could start to see big results?
So first of all, making sure that you are consistently hydrated. We drink things that dehydrate us, especially us who are like motivated entrepreneurs. We're constantly drinking things to get energy, but unfortunately, those things that we're drinking to get energy are loaded with toxicity, like coffee and energy drinks and things and espressos and things of that nature. Those things actually dehydrate you as well. And so you have to understand the earth is 75% water. Our body is as well. And without water, you can see when there's a drought in California, things are on fire.
Yep.
And it's no different in our body. And so staying hydrated is really important. So everybody should be drinking a minimum of 2.5 liters a day, because we eliminate 2.5 liters a day, whether we like it or not. The second thing is, like I mentioned before, is making sure that you get your 3 to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. That is going to put alkalinity in your body, and that's also going to give you fiber, which is going to clean out your colon and also give you the right kind of energy. You have to remember, we're all entrepreneurs, and all of us have these dreams of maybe owning a Bentley, a Ferrari, or whatever kind of car it is. But I can guarantee you cannot put regular gas in these cars. Mm-hmm. It will ruin the car. And so if you want the energy that is necessary, when you look at the people who are most successful, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, the list goes on, they all have energy. And when you look at these celebrities who look young, it's not just because of the Botox.
It might be a little bit. It's just a little bit.
It's not just because of it. They're getting the message of what you need to eat to still look young. You have to remember, we don't get old. We don't get old because we get sick. We get sick because we or vice versa. You understand what I'm saying? Like when we're getting old because we're getting sick, not vice versa. You understand what I mean? People think, oh, you get old and then you get sick. No, it's vice versa, man. You get sick and then you get old.
So what about the stress? And like, what are some things that you do in your own life to make sure that you're creating a, peaceful environment and also staying balanced? I feel like that's becoming a buzzword, balance.
Yeah. And it's not just a buzzword as well. It's called homeostasis in the body. No matter what you do, your body is doing things to balance you out throughout the day that you have no idea that is going on. Your job is to balance the environment outside of you. You understand? And so living in a world that is constantly trying to throw you off that equilibrium, like what I'm doing is I'm meditating. I have a golden hour at the beginning of every day. I don't touch the phone. I don't speak to anybody. It's all about meditation. I may read. I just have moments of clarity and mindfulness, and so that the first hour of the day is going to set the tone for my entire day. And so it's full of peace and it's full of love. And so that's the first thing I do. And that is scientifically proven to reduce stress. And during my meditation, I'm always breathing because breathing changes everything. You got to understand, when you're excited, you're hyperventilating. When you're chill, you're breathing lightly and deeply. And so during my meditations, that's what I'm doing. The other thing that I do is I go into nature. Nature has this way of balancing you as well because it's also a vibe. As soon as you go into nature, like the energy of everything just changes. And most of us are living in like urban cities, and that vibration is totally different from nature. So if you got a local park that you can go to and sit in for a moment, perfect. And the other thing is just making sure like I eat right, man. It's just so important. I notice when I don't eat right. I notice it in all area of my life, my love life, in my professional life, my social life, every aspect. It changes everything about me. And so like those are the things that I'm really focused on in terms of stress reduction, and then just not sweating the small stuff, man. Like people ask me all the time, they're like, what do you think about all these fake vegans, like, and people in entrepreneurship taking advantage of you, people who have been vegan for 10 years and, by jumping on the bandwagon? I'm like, that's none of my business. My business is to evaluate the quality of the product and decide if it's for me. What they do and what their intentions are has nothing to do with me.
One of the things that I'm interested in, and you talked about this, even when you were in Japan, you realized the power of community. How are you, or what tips would you have for people who are trying to find their tribe? How did you do this, especially as you came back to the United States and were really on this, pushing the book and building the base and the foundation here?
Right. I'm going to get a little esoteric here, but I truly believe that before we even come into our physical form, like as spirits, like we make agreements with each other. Like, so in my opinion, I've made an agreement with at least 1 million people. Like, hey, I'm going to do the work that's necessary for you to know what you need to do to heal yourself. When I speak or post or create content, I create content with my tribe in mind. And my tribe is synonymous with me. Of course, we're all different, but like they're synonymous with me. And so like, as I'm creating content for my tribe. I'm not trying to create content for everyone. Because I think that's one of the failures of entrepreneurship is that you try to please and get everybody's dollar when actually there are people who are assigned to you and ready and have been waiting for specifically you. And so like, that's what I do, man. Like I came back with that in mind. Like there's at least 1 million people who are like, when is Dr. Bobby going to get here? And so I look at it like that. And then what happens is those are the people I speak to. I mean, I have people who troll me, and I have pharmacists who hate what I do. I have MDs who hate what I do. And then I have ones who love what I do. The ones who love what I do, I'm like, that's my tribe. And the other ones, I'm like, you shouldn't be here. Like, what are you doing here?
So with the book, Education Over Medication, what has the response been like? And like, what have you learned from a business perspective about what it takes to keep this community going?
You write a book, you have no idea who's going to buy the book or if anybody's going to buy the book. I went to a couple of like seminars about publishing a book and all that kind of stuff, like prior to the book coming out. There was an author who said, like, my first book, nobody bought it. And even like The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, his first book, The Alchemist, nobody bought the book. The publisher gave it back to him. That's how undesirable it was. I kept reminding myself of that, like, this book is not going to be perfect. And several authors had told me, like, no matter how much editing you do, there's still going to be issues in the book. My editor was horrible, and I did not list them in the book, so I can say that. I found 50 errors in the first 50 pages. So I had to go through with the book myself again. And I remember, again, debating whether I was going to put the book out there because I'm like, damn it, like I got all these credentials. I don't want to sound like I got a third grade reading level. But I put it out there anyway, and it had errors in it. And I let the people respond to the book, and it was amazing. Like I said, I sold out my book signing. There were people who were buying 5 books, individuals buying 5 books. And, the internet has been no different. Like, it's just book after book after book. And so the response has been very crazy to me. Like, I remember going to a conference, and one of the doctors who was speaking on What the Health, I introduced myself to him. I didn't tell him I knew who he was, but I remember, telling him who I was, and he was like, okay, cool. And then I was leaving the conference, and he saw me, and then he was like, hey, you got a card? I was like, yeah. I was like, you mind if I give you my book? And I gave him the book, and he goes, holy shit, I bought this book, brother. This is a great book. He's like, hold up, can you sign it for me? And I'm like, oh man, this moment is like, it's surreal. And so I signed a book for him, which was dope in and of itself. And he just tells me this book is what I wanted to write. Yeah, the response has been amazing. And just seeing family say, hey, sending me videos saying like, hey, this is my family. We read your book. We're living by it. It's changing us. And hearing the kids say, I love the book too. Like, it's been amazing, man. So I'm just in sort of like a la-la state from 2018 and really excited about what's going to happen this year.
What's the vision moving forward?
I think the vision is to just empower people. Initially, is to empower them about their physical well-being. What's important for people to understand is this. We can change our environment. We can move. We can change the things we hear. We can change our music and the conversations we have. But the thing we can't change is the thing that all that experience comes through. All of our experience through our senses come through our body. We can't change what it comes through, but what we can change is the radio station and what it comes through. Some people's radio station is unclear. You cannot hear anything. For me, I want to empower people to help them understand how did they get this body in such a way that they can hear these signs that I've heard and opportunities that come to them that they turn down and they don't get to write a story the way they want it to in their lives. And I really think my life has been like amazing. It's been amazing because I've been open enough and I've been clear enough in my physical health to be able to receive some of the things that come to me. I didn't have, the clarity to check my emails like I should have. I would have never saw the initial email of the people wanting to reach out to me to go to Japan. So many people who just delete everything because they don't have the attention span to go through their email. I check everything. And I can't respond to everything, but I check everything. And that's only because my body is clear enough to be able to do that. And so that's what I want to empower people to do initially. And then I want to help them do the same things with their mind and their spirits. And so it's going to be that evolution. Start with the body, then go to the mind, and then help them like spiritually attain the things they want to. Because I really believe like we're all creators. And we literally are genies in and of ourselves, and the universe is just really waiting on us. We just have to create the outlet for the universe to be able to provide everything we want.
A theme that we had throughout this conversation was this idea of like these moments, right, where you had to make a choice. Thinking about your entire journey, Dr. Bobby, who's somebody that you are grateful for?
I'm really thankful to my parents. And I say that because my mother never graduated high school. My dad, he never went to college. They were always there for me. And anytime I told them I was going to do something, it was like, cool, I can't wait to see it. And for me, like, I'm the kind of person where as long as that, at that stage in my life, as long as I didn't get negativity, it was enough for me to say I should move forward. And I'll be honest, like my mom, I'm my first son, she treated me like a king. Like she treated me like a prince, and my dad no less. And so their expectations of me made me have high expectations of myself. My brothers and sisters, like when they made C's, they didn't get the chastising I got. And I'm not saying that that's parental negligence. I'm just saying that I noticed it. I noticed that I had a higher standard that I was set to. I never changed it. And so it always made me think that there was more for me, and not just in terms that I deserve more, that I could have more. And so I'm just very thankful to my parents, and they always speak in my praises. Anytime I come around somebody that they know and I've never met them, they could tell me 30 things about me that I've never told them. I mean, I've met strangers who said, hey, I met your dad, man. He says, he says like the most amazing things. And the look on their faces, they're looking at me like I'm, Oprah or somebody.
Don't you love that? Like when your parents' friends are like, oh my God, I've heard so much about you. And you're like, yeah. Who are you again? Dr. Bobby, I love that you said that because, I think there are some of us who have that support. And then, there are some people who haven't had that support or don't have that strong support system. So what kind of encouragement would you give to that person who really is, I guess, motivating themselves and is kind of in this journey alone right now?
Yeah. Let me tell a little story that I think I help anybody that's like that. When I was in the 8th grade, transitioning from the 7th to the 8th, and the 7th, I got in trouble. I was, like I told you before, I was a big kid. And so I was outside at recess, and the teachers were calling everybody in, and I'm just talking with the homies like whatever. My teacher came to grab me from behind to bring me in. And when she grabbed my arm, I grew up in a neighborhood where every day after school, there was a fight. Like somebody was getting drugged. And so when she grabbed me, instinctually, I snatched away from her. And it just scared the shit out of her. And for that, I got suspended for the remainder of the year, which was about 6 months of the year.
What?
Yeah, I got suspended. And so going into my 8th grade year, like I had always been this kid who did his work, got A's and B's. And when I showed up for the first day of school in 8th grade, I noticed the teachers asking like questions you would get in 2nd grade. She's like, hey, if Sally had 4 C cells and Jenny had 2, how many would they have? I'm like, this is addition. Like, what the hell is going on here? So I raised my hand after about 5 of those, and I'm like, is this the retarded class? And the teacher goes, no, this is not. And I'm looking at the kids in here. I'm like, some of them do look off. And I'm thinking like, how did I get in here? And so like, I'm going through that whole shock because I'd always associated myself with being like, you're a smart kid.
Wait, one note, just because I know somebody will come and say this, the word retarded, you meant that in the sense of.
Well, I'm saying that from my eighth grade.
I know. I just want you to say it so that, because I had someone say it on my show before. Someone came and blasted. I just want to make sure that you don't get blasted for saying that word. Okay, all right,
absolutely. And the funny part is, the majority of kids in there were in there because they were deemed unsavory. Mm-hmm. It had nothing to do with their intelligence at all, and I was one of them. And so I immediately raised my hand and I told her, I can't be in here. And I got up to leave and she said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the principal's office. And so I went there and I told him, I was like, look, this is no disrespect to any of the kids that are in there, but like, I've always got A's and B's. Like, I know that this is not the next level for me. Like, so why am I in this class? He never could explain it to me, but I stayed in that office with him for 45 minutes saying, I can't go back there. And he literally asked me, do I think I'm better than the kids? And I was like, absolutely not. I'm not better than them, but like, I want better. I want to be in a class that challenges me. And he was like, well, you'll have to get your mom to sign a waiver. And I called my mom and I was like, I'm not going back to the class. My mom came up there. And again, my mom never graduated from high school. And the way he explained it to her was, hey, he's going to get an A in there. He's a smart kid. And my mom was like, well, what's the problem? I'm like, because I want to go to college. And so she signs the waiver. And he immediately takes me to an AP pre-algebra class. That was about 2 levels above what I've ever taken. He knocks on the door and the teacher, I disturbed the classroom, and he tells the teacher I'm going to be in there. And she looks at me and comes out and goes, can I talk to you in private? We close the door and she asked me, did you take this class as a prerequisite? And I go, no. And she looks at him like, why would you put him in here? Like, no student is even allowed to be in here without a prerequisite. Like, this is an AP class. Like, he's not going to do well. And so he was like, well, this is the only math class available and he has to take a math. And so she asked me if I was going to be in any trouble. And I told her no, I just wanted to be in a class that was going to challenge me. And she said, it's going to challenge you. You know, at the end of the year, when the class was over, I ended up with an A in the class. And I remember her distinctly coming to me and saying, you know, the principal set you up to fail. And I'm really proud that you made an A in here. And you should know that you've proven to yourself that not only do you belong, but there are people who are going to think you don't belong along your life and your journey. And it's going to be very important for you to remember this class, that people are going to try to place you in places that you don't belong. But each time you have to put yourself where you belong. It's up to you. And so that's what I would encourage everybody who feels like they don't have the support group in terms of people encouraging them. I got boxed in terms of my reputation. And people had designated me as someone who was most unlikely to succeed. Motivation is like a shower. It has to be taken daily. And the medicine to motivation is discipline in between the two. In between motivation, you have to be disciplined. And you can't count on other people to be disciplined for you. And you can't count on other people to motivate you, just like you can't count on them to take your shower for you. And so that's what I would encourage people to understand about life, is that life is not always peaches and sunshine. You have to pick yourself up because failure is not, it's not the antithesis of success. It is a part of success.
Okay, last question. Just because I'm just curious. Do you have any vices? Like, is there one food that you just sneak in every now and then? Do you ever eat meat? Just if you see, is there anything?
I actually don't eat meat. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people. I can't eat meat.
Like you haven't eaten it for so long that your body just.
It is repulsive to me.
Okay.
Same
what about
thing.
Oreos? Do you just ever take a chocolate chip cookie every now and then?
Nah. What I can say is I like brownies.
Okay, so you'll figure out good recipes for.
Man, let me tell you, I like brownies and pizzas. So I would literally hop on a plane to go get a slice of pizza in New York. That's vegan. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'll figure out like what's the best pizza in the US, and then I'll go, okay, let's book this flight. So like I have my vices. They're still vegan, but like I'm willing to travel. Like, you know, the same way you see those signs like we'll work for food, like I will travel for like the food I love just to get that similar taste that I used to love.
So let's go into our lightning round. So this is a really quick prompt. I'm going to give you a word, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And remember, we're sticking with our whole dreams and drive metaphor. Okay?
Okay.
The first word is park.
Move.
Reverse.
Forward.
Neutral.
Stagnant.
Drive.
Dream.
And if you want to be a dream driver, Dr. Bobby, you have to have your keys to success. So can you tell me 3 things that you think, you know, every dream driver, no matter where you are in your journey, these are 3 things you need in your toolkit before you hit the road?
Be a learner, a life learner. It's so important, man. Like every step of my life, like even when people ask me things I deem as unnecessary questions, like I'm trying to learn from it. Mm-hmm. When I see somebody who's great at doing that thing, like I see them as a teacher. It doesn't matter if it's marketing or if it's herbalism. So fail forward. A lot of people fall backwards. When they fall, they think they failed. But failure is an absolutely necessity to success. Actually, I'm of the like position that it is necessary for me to fail at least 5 times before I learn what I need to learn. Because if I win the lottery, I can never reproduce that. I could just buy more lottery tickets. But in the process of starting a business, I learned so much about marketing, about, you know, customer relations, about products, about everything that it makes the action repeatable. So fail forward. And the last thing I would say is do what you love and love what you do. And you'll never work a day in your life. I love what I do. I don't clock into anything. I'm never off. And it's only because I truly love what I'm doing. I just tell people if you're not going to do something that you love to do, you might as well just get a job and do something for somebody else who loves what they do.
That is so true. I always think about like, you know, why 3 years later, why am I still doing Dreams and Drive? It's like, I just have this love of hearing people's stories and sharing it with the world. And it might seem so simple, and maybe the whole vision hasn't evolved yet, but I know if I stick with this gift and this passion of mine, that it's going to grow into something great. Kind of like what you said in the beginning of this interview is, I think someone asked you, what are you going to be great at? You know, and I think that's what's really driving my own journey. So thank you so much for chatting with me, Dr. Bobby. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online, where they can buy your book, where they can, you know, learn more about what you're up to?
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon. You can also purchase a copy from my website that is signed. The website is drbobbyprice.com. That's BOBBUYPRICE. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Holistic. That's DOCTORHOLISTIC. And I'm also on Facebook as Dr. Bobby Price. So those are the ways you can find me, follow me, and just really looking forward to like growing with people and growing this business and helping people become empowered with their lives, not only physically, but spiritually and mentally as well.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 198 with Dr. Bobby. I hope that you enjoyed hearing his dream driving journey and his keys to success. Don't forget, if you want to enter to win a copy of his book, Vegetation Over Medication, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/win. That's dreamsanddrive.com/win. I want you guys all to enter. The book is filled with so many great resources about how you can transform your life and your health. So please, please, please stop what you're doing right now. Pause this episode, pull up your browser, and go to dreamsanddrive.com/win to enter. If you love this episode also, I'm going to ask that you share it with somebody. So many great resources, so many moments of clarity, so many moments of learning that we all can take away from Dr. Bobby's journey. So please, please, please share this with a friend. Remember, we are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well. I want to give a shout out to those who have been leaving reviews. I've told you guys every week how reviews are so important to us growing the community. If you want to leave your own rating and review, just log into iTunes, log on to Apple Podcasts, search Dreams and Drive, click on write a review, and then you can leave something there. So we have 2 reviews I want to give a shout out to. This one is coming from me3224. They say, great podcast. I love your content and selection of guests. I love listening to it in the morning to get my day started and to stay motivated throughout my dissertation writing process. Thank you so much. This next one is coming from Reaching for Success, one of my fave podcasts, Dreams and Drive. Raina is a great interviewer. She asks great questions and there are so many gems shared. I would say one of the best podcasts out for creatives and entrepreneurs. What I love most about the podcast is that it confirms that I'm going in the right direction in the area of entrepreneurship. As a creative and entrepreneur, it's always great to hear from people who think like me and are going against the grain to make their dreams a reality. Thank you for creating an amazing platform. Well, thank you, Reaching for Success, for listening and leaving reviews. If you guys want to hear yours read on the next episode of Dreams and Drive, you got to leave one. Last thing, remember, I'm announcing a special event soon. So if you want to be the first one to hear about it, you have to be on our email list. To sign up, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. dreamsanddrive.com/join. And also, guys, I'm looking for sponsors and partners for our spring episodes of Dreams and Drive. So if you're interested, if you want to collaborate in some way with the Dreams and Drive platform, you can just go to dreamsanddrive.com/contact, or you can send me an email, raina@dreamsanddrive.com. And also, if you follow Dreams and Drive on Instagram, which I hope you're doing, you'll see that I'm trying to put myself out there more as a speaker, as a host, as a panel moderator. So if you are booking a conference, if you are planning an event and you need someone to interview people on stage, if you want to hear me talk about how I built my podcast or me share storytelling tips and advice, marketing, personal branding advice to an audience that you are curating, please, please, please hit me up as well. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/contact or send me an email, raina@dreamsanddrive.com. I want to do more speaking engagements in 2019. I want to interview people on stages. I want to moderate panels. I want to talk about storytelling. This is my passion. This is my love. So if you know of any way that you can help me or know of any conferences I should be pitching or any conferences I should be attending, events I should be attending, please, please, please be in touch. You can always reach me via social media as well. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, guys, and we're going to chat again in episode 199. Bye, guys.